Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. It's Sean here. Today I'm going to be showing you how to make a DIY roof-mounted shower for your car or truck. There are a lot of YouTube videos about this type of shower, but in this video I want to go into a lot of detail to really help you nail down the specifics of building the shower. This type of shower is really easy to make and it doesn't cost very much either. And it's really nice to have if you just want to clean yourself off or if you want to wash dishes or do anything that needs pressurized water. This type of shower can be easily pressurized from your car with an electric 12-volt tire pump. This type of shower actually holds enough water to run on low pressure for about 3 minutes, which is plenty of water to wet yourself and then wash yourself down with a sponge and then rinse off. In fact, it's enough water for multiple people to take quick showers. On this shower, right next to the spigot, we have a schrader valve for pressurizing it, and then we also have a release valve in case the shower were to build up too much pressure, because you wouldn't want the pipe to explode if it builds up too much pressure, whether it's hot out or it's brittle in the winter. Some of the truck showers that you can buy that are commercially made run between $400 and $600. So this is a lot more economical. So the main things that we're using to build this are, we have a spigot, we have a schrader valve with threads on it, and an end cap for PVC pipe. We have a T. We also have this other end cap, and we have PVC glue, and we have 4-inch pipe, about 6.5 feet of it. When we're done with the project, we're going to be spray painting it. We're going to sand it down with 220 grit sandpaper, and we're going to spray paint the whole thing black, which is going to help it absorb sunlight and keep the water inside nice and warm. Okay, so we're going to put a mark where we're going to drill. Let's see. Okay, so we're going to put a mark where we're going to drill. Right there. So we're going to use a round file to basically just clean out the edge right here. This is what we're using for the relief valve, and this is a 60 psi relief valve, so if the tank ever gets above 60 psi, it's going to release the pressure. Whenever you're drilling a larger hole, always make sure to use a pilot hole first. Gosh, I gouged the workbench right here. Darn it. I'm gonna have to sand that out or something. That's terrible. I'm gonna put this sheet of steel down so that I don't drill through to the workbench anymore. Okay, so there we go. We got all 3 holes drilled. We got the one for the relief valve, one for the fill valve, and one for the spigot. So now we're going to thread in each of those things. An important part to get a good seal is to use Teflon tape. You just need 1 or 2 turns around the threads and you'll get a good seal. There we go, and now we're flush. And now we'll do the same thing for the release valve. Well, I decided that that valve was not going to work, so I got this valve. So this will point down more and not get in the way with these 2 valves up here. Okay, so now that we're done putting the valves on here, it's time to cut the pipe, and first we have to measure how long we want the pipe to be. So I decided that I want the pipe to be about 70 inches. My favorite way to cut through PVC pipe is to use a hacksaw. Hacksaws are cheap, they're about $10, replacement blades are cheap, and they're easy to cut through plastic and things like that. Okay, so I have looked at the truck and I've looked at how the pipe should be laid out, and I put my markings. You can use a towel to get the dust out. The next step is going to be to glue the pipes together, but before we can glue them, we have to do a really important part, and that's priming the pipes. I recommend if you get PVC pipe glue, you get this kit that comes with primer and glue. This is like $10, and just the glue by itself is $7. And the primer is important because it'll keep the pipe from leaking. Be really careful with this stuff because it makes a mess really easily and it stains everything. After you put on the primer, you only have a little bit of time to get the glue on and to get the fittings cemented together. So make sure to do it quickly. Do one primer and then one cement at a time and put them together and then start on the next one. Now after you've applied the cement and you start to put the pipes together, give it like a twisting motion, and that helps get out any air pockets and helps it get a really good seal, because the last thing you want is to put this whole thing together and then have it leak. So that's how we put the joints together. I stained my shirt. I knew I would stain something, but oh well. And that's it. So now we'll have to put the longer section together and it'll be ready to dry, and then we will try pressurizing it. I do want to pressure test this, but it takes a little bit for the cement to cure. And so in the meantime, I'm getting it ready to paint. And so the first thing you're going to want to do when painting something like this is you're going to want to sand the whole surface down. To sand PVC, you're going to want to use a 220 grit sandpaper. You don't need to sand it so hard that you end up removing the text that's printed on the pipe. Alright, so everything's together, but despite all our attempts, we haven't been able to get it to stop leaking, and I'll show you why. So a lot of people who made these showers and containers have used a T-coupling right here, and they've tightened this down and basically used this as their fill port. However, we're having a lot of trouble with it leaking. So I have a new design and we're gonna try that. So what we decided to go with to fill the shower is a ball valve on a sweeping T. And this is designed to be sealed, so we won't have any leaks like we did with the T. Of course, this resulted in us having to cut the T out on both sides, and it made our whole pipe a little bit shorter than it used to be. Now it's 5 foot 4 inches. So at some point we might extend it a little bit longer, but for now this is good enough. All right guys, we're back a couple days later, and where we left off is we had just finished sanding the PVC. So the next part that we gotta do is we gotta get the mounts ready, and then we gotta paint it. So these mounts I got on Amazon. I think they're kayak or canoe mounts. I'm not exactly sure how they're supposed to work, but they're rooftop mounts. So these mounts go horizontal across the car, and so we're gonna have to cut out a semicircle the same shape as the PVC pipe. And then the second part of modifying these roof mounts, we're just gonna have to cut that hole a little bit wider to fit our roof rack. This knife wasn't long enough, so I think we'll have to use a longer knife. It's a little bit rough on the inside, but I'm not concerned. It's gonna work out great. So the next step is to cut out the sides here, left and right, and I've already done this on the other one, and I'll tell you how to do a good job, because I kind of butchered the first side, and then I figured out how. So I already had a 1-inch hole saw from cutting the spigot hole, and I figured let me try to use that. But what I found is it works best if you run the hole saw backwards, because you're not trying to really cut through something hard, you're trying to cut through something very soft, in fact. And so running it backwards still cuts, but it keeps it from tearing into the foam. This is the result if you run the hole saw forwards. It gets all torn up in there. And this is the result if you run the hole saw backwards. And there we go, we got it widened all the way through. So then the next step for this project is gonna be painting.
When you're choosing which paint to use, make sure to choose a flat black. This will allow the sunlight to absorb more effectively. If you use a gloss black, the sunlight will reflect off the pipe and the water won't get hot. Even matte paint will go on glossy, but after about 10 minutes it will dry to a matte black.
The paint is looking a nice matte now with a few glossy spots in it. So we'll give it a few more minutes and then we'll put it up on the foam blocks. We'll turn it over and we'll spray paint the other side. One thing I forgot to mention earlier is you need to cover anything that you don't want to get paint on. I covered the spigot with a towel and I covered the release valve and the schrader valve with tape. I'm also not going to paint the ball fill valve, so I've covered this with a paper towel and then wrapped tape around it. And if you want to speed up the drying process, just turn on the fan. Okay, so I've just finished painting the other side. We're all done with the painting. Now we just got to let it dry. So this is how I mounted the shower onto the car. I got these straps from Home Depot and I was able to lift the shower up onto the foam blocks and then use the straps to kind of lash the pipe down to those foam blocks and around the roof racks. So I've also put this cap on here which keeps leaves and other debris from getting into the fill port. When you want to fill the shower, you just open this valve and you either put your hose in or you can lift a container of water up to fill it as well. I find it's actually easier to kind of rotate the entire system up straight so that the water goes straight down the pipe. One thing I wanted to mention is that if I were building this again, I would put the fill port right here on the other side of the shower towards the front of the car. And I think that would make it easier to fill because when you're using the shower, you want the spigot to be on the downhill side of the car. So if you're parked on a slope, you want that part to be downhill. And it's easier to fill the shower when the fill port is on the uphill side. These straps are really cheap. I got them at Home Depot for about $15 for 2 of them. If you have any loose hanging strap that's not secured, it will start to flap against the vehicle and it gets really annoying. So for this little piece that was hanging out, I couldn't tuck in because I had tightened everything down so much. So I just used a zip tie to hold it to the roof rack. Now for the hose, I wanted to use something really flexible and small. I didn't want to use an actual garden hose. So what I did is I made this hose out of vinyl pipe and I just used some brass hose adapters to basically connect it up to the spigot. This is a normal hose adapter with a 1/2 inch flared connector that I use a hose clamp just to connect this on. Same with this side, but this is the male end and I connected it to a hose adapter that connected it straight to the nozzle. I find that the shower doesn't hold enough air pressure to fill it up one time and use all of the water in the shower. Instead, what I like to do is just keep the compressor on while I'm using the shower and make sure it's staying in the 30 to 40 PSI range. And if I need to, I can turn it off in between. If you guys want to see more projects just like this, make sure to check out the Gear and Projects playlist. If you guys have any questions about how I built this shower or anything else, just let me know in the comments below. And if you want to see more camping and wilderness adventure videos, make sure to subscribe to the channel and we'll see you in the next video.